Sup, guys? This is going to be a quick one today as I don't have any official plays, but I'll just talk about a couple games real quick and also brag about going 2-0 last night. Two easy wins. That's the type of day that you like, man. A bunch of my leans were accurate as well. Most of them, I think, probably that I talked about on the show. And the two wins that I had were like the easiest, probably the best plays of the night. They just both won so easily. Washington Nationals and Minnesota Twins with Zebby Matthews putting in a decent performance in his debut. Both starting pitching matchups went my way. Both games completely went my way. I like it. I'm on a 10-1-1 run now, which is obviously needed. And I'm still not back to breaking even on the year, but I'm getting closer to potentially getting there with this run, trying to erase that slow damage that has been done in baseball over the last few months or whatever, last couple of months. But we're getting back to it. This feels pretty good right now. I'm skipping today's card. I will look at a couple of games real quick. I'm just going to mention there is that angle that I sometimes like to look at where you have a pitcher that was just traded to a contender and now they are facing the team that traded them away. And that is the case with Martin Perez for San Diego. He's facing Pittsburgh, who just traded him away. He has made 2 starts for San Diego so far. The problem I have with this is that, Pittsburgh has got to be like putting in some effort here to try to avoid getting swept again by San Diego. San Diego just went to Pittsburgh 2 series ago and swept them there, and now they're on the verge of sweeping them in San Diego too. So I think you got to see some motivation out of Pittsburgh. So that gives you a little bit of hesitation, but also Martin Perez just isn't a very good pitcher. He's a junk pitcher. He's older. He's the worst of the 2 pitchers in this matchup up against Mitch Keller. Keller is the better of the 2 pitchers, so I can't play just that angle on Perez getting pumped to face his former team. I just don't know if I really see it. His numbers against Pittsburgh specifically actually are also pretty bad. I think they hit him to the tune of over 300 batting average, whereas Mitch Keller, the better pitcher overall, but also has better numbers against San Diego than Perez does against Pittsburgh. I think Keller has like okay numbers against San Diego, so I'm just staying away from that. And then quickly before I get out of here, I will say I think that the best, if I was going to play anything today, and I'm not going to do it because of the market kind of looks like it's against San Diego and what I'm about to talk about here, by the way. The market on San Diego's dropped from minus 135 to minus 131, with San Diego being slightly public. I see 52% of the cash and tickets on San Diego. Take from that what you will. But then the other game, the game that would be closest to being a play for me, because I do like the situation and the starting pitching matchup well enough, but the market looks like it's so strongly against it that I just don't want to come in and do it, even though I will sometimes go against the market. I'm just going to fold on this one and just live to see another day and pass on the day today, even though it is a full baseball card and there are some money-making opportunities. I'm being very selective here, and that would be the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Phillies are in a good spot here. They were in a bad spot yesterday, as I mentioned. They were returning home from a long road trip that took them out to the West Coast, and they had a bad game yesterday. They lost. They got shut out by the pretty awful Miami Marlins. When a team is in that situation, they return home. They have a bad start in like the distracted spot in the first game of the series. If that happens, they tend to bounce back and refocus and do a lot better in game 2, because now you have those home affairs kind of back settled. You've done what you need to do at home. You just lost yesterday, and like we can't let that happen again. So now that tends to focus you again. So I like Philadelphia for that reason. And Tyler Phillips is pitching for Philadelphia. He's a rookie who kind of had his major league debut delayed a bit, I think by some injuries. I think he's like 26 now, even though it is his debut season. And he had some good starts this season, a couple of really good starts actually this season, and then has kind of regressed a little bit. But he's shown glimpses of being really good at times, and I don't think he's bad. His overall stats are pretty good, but he's had a couple of not so good games, although I think they did win with him pitching in his last game against the Dodgers. Does that mean he's going to kind of be in a letdown spot here after a big like get up game against the Dodgers? Maybe, perhaps, but I do think that he is the better way to go in this. So not only is Philadelphia, I think, in the motivated spot now because it's the second game back home after getting shut out embarrassingly last night, Phillips has never been seen before by Miami, and he's a decent young pitcher. So I do think he has the edge in this game, especially with Miami not having a very good offense. Going up against Phillips, who they haven't seen before, I think that is an advantage to Phillips. As I mentioned on this channel a lot, young pitchers with good stuff tend to have the advantage against offenses that haven't seen them before. The offenses have to adjust and whatever. And on the other side, we do have Edward Cabrera, who is a young guy as well, and he just really has not started getting it together, if you think he ever will, which I do think there's a chance that he will, which I'll get to in a minute. Cabrera does not have good numbers on the season, and I believe his numbers against Philadelphia are mediocre. I don't think they're as bad as you would think based on how bad his other numbers are and how good Philadelphia is offensively. I think Cabrera actually does okay against them. I can double check that real quick. Actually, yeah, he holds them to a 236 batting average, but he has so many walks against them that it's a 764 OPS, which is really insane. And that is his problem. Like, I do think he's a good pitcher. Like, he has a good fastball. He does have good stuff, and he has good strikeout stuff. He absolutely has the ability to blow hitters away, which is why I kind of liked him when he first came into the majors. But then he just hasn't gotten it together because his wildness has really been a huge problem. Like I just mentioned, with all the walks against Philadelphia, he's not been good at keeping those walks in check. And that has just really, really hurt him throughout his career so far. He started his career in 2021, and he had a good season actually in 2022, despite having still a really high amount of walks. His whip was actually quite low that year. He didn't allow that many hits. He allowed very few hits that year, actually. He's been pretty tough to hit in general. So that has been a strength of his, the strikeouts and being pretty unhittable, but it's just been the walks, man. After that 2022 where it looked like he was kind of rounding into form and he was going to be really good, he had a pretty major setback last year and had bad numbers again last year in a full season, whereas 2022 he pitched not a full season, but was a starter for 14 starts. And last season he started 20 games and appeared in 22 and had a bit of a drop-off, and that drop-off has continued this year. But he does seem to be pitching a little bit better. He hasn't allowed any earned runs in his last couple of starts, and he's had a string of some pretty decent starts, a bunch in a row, where he hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in any start, going all the way back to July 13th at least. So it does seem like he maybe is starting to get it together a little bit, especially with those 2 starts in his last 2 outings where he didn't allow any runs, although he still walked too many guys. But he had a lot of strikeouts, didn't allow a lot of hits against the Braves on the road and the Padres. And those are both good hitting teams. So that's just something that's going to keep me off of it a little bit, man, because I think Cabrera actually isn't that bad. If he was continuing to pitch pretty poorly in those recent games and he had bad stats against Philadelphia, sign me up. I'd be on Philadelphia here, but just that aspect of it, I just can't do it. And Philadelphia is public, of course. They get 93% of the tickets on them. I mean, they're the way better team. Everybody knows they are. But they only have 52% of the cash on them, and the line is reverse moved against them a bit, down from minus 180 to minus 176. And in a way, that line almost seems too short to me, which, I mean, are the books really going to undervalue Philadelphia, though? Probably not. And like I just said, the market, the line movement, and the cash discrepancy is heavily against them. So that's just going to do it for me, man. I'm just going to stay away. I just don't want to get involved in any of what's going on here today. So that will just keep me off of that. I mean, you got Oakland and the Mets. I think Estes and Peterson, I think both have never been seen before by these opposing lineups. So it's like, well, does that mean you should play the under? Probably not. With a line at 8.5, and it's dropped a little bit to 8.5 juice to the under. But it looks like the tickets are heavily on the over, but even more of the cash looks like it's on the over right now, even though that conflicts with where the line has moved. But both of those pitchers just aren't very good. So even though you have the unfamiliarity going for both of them, I don't really see it. That's not a game that I want to get involved in. Playing an under there, no thanks. And I think that's about it, man. So no official plays today, but figured I would break something down a little bit of a shorter video. Hopefully there's some good information in there still. Maybe gives you some thoughts on those games at least. Have a good one, man. Peace.